Hello everyone. This time I am departing from my usual format to give advice to beginners on what to read and how to read and interpret it. What is special about the writings of Western philosophers is that they are attempts to convince you of something you may not already believe, and they often disagree with each other. Many of us do not have much experience in reading something that attempts to prove something to us, except maybe editorials in newspapers. And there is also the question of what to start reading first and what to put off until later, because the great works of the philosophers are not equally easy to understand. In my own first semester of introductory philosophy, the required reading was The Republic by Plato, Meditations on First Philosophy by René Descartes from the 17th century, The Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels from the 19th century, and Existentialism and Human Emotions by Jean-Paul Sartre from the 20th century. Going straight to the philosopher's work allows the reader to engage with the arguments made in the text and see how a coherent system of ideas emerges in front of our eyes. Using texts from different epochs instead of historical order allows the novice to see the different approaches to philosophical thinking and method. This approach also gives a better understanding of the Western intellectual tradition as a whole that you have inherited. Another two short books I think could have served these purposes well are An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding by David Hume from the 18th century and Pragmatism by William James from the 20th century. If you have not already done so before completing these books, or a similar list, I highly recommend learning logic. Irving M. Kopy's Introduction to Logic, which has many editions, introduces many topics in formal and informal, inductive and deductive logic. It goes into common and informal fallacies, definitions, syllogisms, symbolic logic, inferences of causality, and some other things. It also contains plenty of exercises. Logical Self-Defense by Johnson and Blair is a good collection of definitive explanations of informal fallacies. It will explain what is meant if you hear that some argument is a straw man, ad hominem, or a red herring. I believe I can tell you from experience that learning logic can make you a better reader, writer, and thinker. Now, what about books that are about philosophy and its history? There's nothing wrong with having them as a reference tool and reading a couple of them, but philosophy is an activity practiced by engaging with the original text and trying to see if you can refute it or give your own account of why you agree with it. My point really is that secondary sources should not be a substitute. That being said, there are also many online reference materials and videos available. There are other people out there making good philosophy videos going into various levels of depth. What I think is special about my series of philosophers' ideas between 10 minutes and 10 hours is that I concentrate on theories that are historically influential or relevant to today, and I go into the reasoning behind those ideas found in the text, at a depth that makes for a good undergraduate term paper. Ultimately, what I try to do for the viewer who is new to the theory is to construct a narrative that explains how that theory may be seen as rational, with summaries and a critical section to encourage independent thinking and hopefully grant better memory. As for advice on how to read a philosophical text, the first thing to note is that sometimes special terms are being put to use, or a word or phrase is being used to mean something other than what it means in ordinary language. Even a popular phrase like common sense may be used with a particular meaning that is stated in the text. This is the case with William James in his Pragmatism. The reason for this is that any language has been adapted and developed to express the ideas that have already been communicated. New ideas can require some adjustments. So always look for definitions. You will not always get examples or analogies. In the absence of a definition of a new or ambiguous term, look at the way the author uses the term to get a feel for its meaning and reference. Most of the time, this will not be necessary, but in the case of some philosophers, like particularly Immanuel Kant and Martin Heidegger, they may have many terms, and it is useful to create your own glossary in some notebook that you can consult as you go along. One thing to particularly look at with some good scrutiny is any preface or introduction that is written by the philosopher, or the opening couple of paragraphs of an article. You may find therein some useful statements about the structure and intent of the work, or what thesis is intended to be proven. In long books, the table of contents can itself constitute a picture of the structure of the piece. Another thing to look for is any summaries at the beginning or ending of a chapter or part. One thing to bear in mind about great philosophical works is something they have in common with great or entertaining novels. They are, in some sense, written backwards. Something that is in Chapter 3 can be there for the purpose of allowing something to be put into Chapter 27 that makes reference to it or goes along with it. This is why getting a sense of the structure or general outline of the piece as a whole can be useful. Above all else, should you encounter a situation where you just can't get a sense of what is written, leave it on the shelf rather than getting bogged down with it. Let philosophy be enjoyable. Time and experience will make you better. I think if you can remember these 4 things: look for special meanings of terms, scrutinize prefaces and introductions, get a feel for the outline of the work through the table of contents and summaries, and finally, be willing to shelve something for a while. Then you'll be off to a good start. And as you get more advanced, you can start going deeper into the meaning of and arguments for some theory that captures your interests by writing a paper of maybe 5 to 15 pages, depending on how broad the topic is. Well, that's all for now. Good luck on your journey. Feel free to hit like and subscribe and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.